us this morning is the president of United Mutual, Anthony Liberatore. Thanks for joining us today on the program, Anthony.
Thanks for having me, Paul. It's good to see you again.
Now, you guys met last week, and that was your second Tuesday of the month, like your regular meeting.
Yeah.
It was a pretty long meeting, about 4.5 hours.
Yeah, it was long. But really would like to talk about the town hall we had Friday, just to reach out and thank the residents who took time out of the day to come to that. And we had a really good presentation by the El Toro Water District.
Right.
And they came in for us. Like to thank them and thank the residents for showing up. And yes, our meeting Tuesday was very, very long.
Yeah. At your town hall, what kind of responses and what kind of feedback did you get from your members?
Well, right now, we passed out index cards, and I have the directors are going through those to kind of see if we can come up with some consistent message that was sent to us by the residents. And for the most part, we heard that they really enjoyed the presentation of the El Toro Water District because they were really thorough. And they talked about the whole Southwest water issue. You know, I don't hate to use, my granddaughter says, Pop, don't use the word problem, say issue. So.
Yeah, issues, right.
And they went, I mean, it was an amazing presentation.
Yeah. Well, those issues are happening throughout the world, and especially here in Southern California with our drought. So we'll see how we can manage to save water, especially in our community.
Yeah, it's really important, and I can't brag enough about what a good presentation they made for us in United.
Yeah. Well, speaking of presentations, today we want to talk about the committee process. You know, that's where a lot of the work is done. So it's important that the residents have the feedback and be able to attend many of these committee meetings.
Yeah, you know, we talked about last time with Lisa that David Sterling and Robert's Rules they allow boards to have committees of 1 or 2 people and more than 1 or 2 committees to consider, to investigate, and take action on subjects or issues, to weed through that, and then they decide what they're going to pass on up to the board. And this helps the board to get more work done because of the work of the committee. So it's really, really important.
Now, a lot of the work, like you said, is done at the committee process, and then that committee, no matter if it's landscape or maintenance and construction or whatever it might be, like you said, that's where all the work is being done. Now, once the committee either usually approves a certain process, that goes to the board for the following month to have a discussion, or is it pretty much, if the committee approves a project, does the board usually go along with that?
Well, not necessarily. What happens when the committee comes up with a recommendation for action that goes to the board, it usually appears on what we call the consent calendar. And the consent calendar, in Robert's Rules and in David Sterling, the consent calendar represents work of the committees. It's already been done. And it may, the board may approve the consent calendar with one fell swoop. But in our case, our directors appoint me as the chair to go through those things because they have the ability to take those things off the consent calendar, put them into what we call unfinished business, or make a motion to refer them back to the committee for further research. So some people think that the consent calendar should be approved
just
in
automatically,
one fell swoop.
Right.
But if you look at Robert's Rules, it says here that the assemblies that have heavy workloads may find a consent calendar useful, a useful tool for disposing of such items.
Right.
But still, the board of directors have the say.
Right.
Not necessarily me. And I try to follow the direction of the board. And so the consent calendar, we can approve all those items, and our consent calendar is pretty full most of the time. And some directors want to pull things off, and they have the right to do that. So can't usually we don't approve the consent calendar one fell swoop. And I have an instance where a committee rejected some question. And this one director wanted to go around the committee and bring it to the board anyway, which would defeat the whole logic and purpose of a committee.
Right.
And when a committee wrote something down, for lack of a better word, it's dead, you know? And don't tie up the board with that, because the whole idea of committee is to help the board do more work.
Right. Yeah, I remember many years ago, before the consent calendar, we spent a lot of our time covering meetings, and it would be, say, for example, landscaping. If Manor 213C had issues with landscaping, they would sit and basically have the committee meeting during their regular board meeting, because every issue was brought up. And luckily the consent calendar became a normal process, and that actually sped up the meeting quite a bit. But like you said, there are instances where the board would like to have another look at some of these things.
Our directors are very, very into their jobs or their mission, and they want the opportunity to look things over and say, nah, let's reconsider that, or let's bring it back. Now that reminds me too, we have in Robert's Rules, there's something called a motion to reconsider. And for people at home or listening in, I advise them to look in the new edition of Robert's Rules at 12. And section 37 goes into this whole thing of reconsidering a motion. It's a uniquely American motion, and it's very detailed, but it goes into characteristics, when it can be used, when it can be abused. And so it has nothing to do with the committee recommendations. And so that's another issue. That was something, I know a lot of people, directors, is something they're pushing goes down, they want to keep up with it.
Yeah.
But again, the consent calendar and committee work is trying to get the board to accomplish more work.
Right.
And that's what it's for.
And each year too, as the president of a board, United Mutual, the chairs of those committees are selected by you after discussion amongst all your your directors as well that are on the board.
That's right. Some presidents will go to the boards with a list of recommendations for committee. I chose not to do it that way. I chose to go to the prep meetings, our agenda prep meetings, and go around the board so that all the directors have a piece, and we talk about the committees and they agree. Because even though can come up with a list of committees, the board of directors can say no. The final decision, if you read Robert's Rules and David Sterling, the final decision on committee assignments belongs to the board, not to the president.
Right.
So I chose to go around the board and try to get it done, because then all 11 of us have a piece, own a piece of that committee assignment.
And it's more of a discussion, because a lot of times what we've seen is if someone had a particular expertise in a profession, financial advisor or something like that, they're usually involved in the finance committee or something like that. And that's where that discussion and where that expertise can be discussed and then assigned to that particular committee.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's what we try to take advantage of, the skills that directors bring to the table. And then, of course, my job as the current president of United is to try to create a consensus among the directors, because that's the way you get things done.
Right.
And you get like a feeling of satisfaction that you've really done something,
Yeah. Now, you just met, so you meet on the second Tuesday of each month. That's at 9:30 right here in the boardroom. You also have your United Meet the Candidates that's going to be aired here on Village Television this week.
Right, I think it's Friday.
It's going to be Friday at 12:30.
Yes,
so how many seats do you have available for your next board?
We have 3 seats available, and I've been told we have 4 candidates for it. And so and I hope the people at home will join in and listen to that, because we represent them,
right.
and they should have an idea what they're looking for in directors.
Right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, this morning, and very important information, especially about the committee process. And we want to encourage our viewers to be sure and watch on Friday at 12:30 right here, live from Village Television, right here in your boardroom. We will be bringing you those United Meet the Candidates statements and present that to you right here on Village Television. Thanks again for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Paul. Take care.
You bet. That's Anthony Liberatore. He's the president of United Mutual, and they do meet on the second Tuesday of each month. We'll be back with more of our program right after this.